Okay, English students, this is a tutorial on how to look at poetry as we go through Walt Whitman's collections from Song of Myself. I want you to do this one along with me, and then I'm going to ask you to do something creatively. I'm going to have you find your own song and do this for a song. And then as we work through this unit, I want you gradually to be able to do this as well. So here are some of the things we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do whenever we read poetry is I'm going to read through it one time. It's going to take me a couple times just to read through it to understand it. The second thing I want to do is I want to get a quick summary. And so as I go through this, I'm going to make some notes on the side today as to what these stanzas mean. And then I'll go back and summarize this so I can get a big picture. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and annotate it 5 times. I'm going to use some of these ideas up here from what I see in the text and annotate with that. Very last, what I want to do is write down a theme. What is the message that I believe that's being conveyed here? So this is I Celebrate Myself and Sing Myself, coming from Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. This is what he says. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me is good belongs to you. So as I see that text right there, I see that he's got this idea of an atom, like a particle belonging to me as it belongs to you. He's talking about celebrating himself and singing himself and what I am, you are. It's kind of like it's connecting him to us. And so I think what he's saying is this. You can go ahead and write this down. What I believe about myself, you will share. All right, so let's see what he says. Well, let's see if I actually believe it or not. But here we go. I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. Okay, so this word loaf, I think, means to kind of kick back. He's saying, I invite my soul. I invite myself to stop and smell the roses. I invite myself to just kind of reflect on nature. And I think I'm going to write this right here a little bit. I'm going to write down, I will break tradition and reflect on nature. I think that kind of means to break tradition a little bit here, because he's going to loaf and invite his soul. And I think that this might mean right here that he's inviting his soul. This would have been in the context of this historically, that you wouldn't invite your soul to do this. Historically, your soul shouldn't be focused on nature. It should be focused on something else. It should be focused on religion, or it should be focused on a church, or it should be focused on God, according to our Puritan ancestors. So I think he's breaking tradition here a little bit, and he's reflecting on nature. And then he says, my tongue, every atom of my blood, formed from this soil, this air, born here of parents, born here from parents the same, and their parents the same. I now, 37 years old, in perfect health begin, hoping to cease not till death. He keeps talking about atoms again, but now he's talking about not just him and us, but it sounds like he's talking about the air and the soil and how we come from the earth, and that all parents are the same, and kind of this connection with nature. And he's actually going to die someday. He's 37, but he hopes it doesn't happen for a while. Well, I think this is what he's saying right here. The earth and my parents are the same essence. Kind of get this connection with nature. And then he says this at the end. Creeds and schools in advance, retiring back a while suffice to what they are, but never forgotten. I harbor for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard. Nature without check, with original energy. Well, this word abeyance means this. You can write this down. It means basically held in check. So schools are to be held in check. They're kind of in the background. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak about everything that I think, and this is nature without check. I'm going to speak naturally, both about nature, but also what's on my mind. So here's how I put it. Forget rules. I'll speak what I feel. So if I was to summarize this whole thing right here, just kind of thinking through it, here's how I put it together. I think this is what's happening. Whitman introduces his long poem by explaining that we are one with him, and that we are to observe nature and speak openly without rules. Well, already I can see that this is certainly part of transcendentalist thought. If you remember from our notes, Transcendentalist thought is intellectual. It's almost religious. It's semi-religious. It's an exploration of a naturalistic, unstructured spirituality. That's what our node said. And I see all kinds of stuff in here that reminds me of that. And so what I'm going to do right now is this. I'm going to go ahead and find some of this stuff. And one of the things I find is transcendentalism. So I'm going to go ahead and write down some of that transcendentalism that I see. I definitely see this right here. I definitely see nature. I see some atoms right here. I see these atoms, and I see this soil, this air. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down transcendentalism, okay, because you almost get this idea. This is almost like, it's almost semi-religious for him. It's definitely right here, but it's everywhere. This whole thing is transcendentalists. I celebrate myself and I sing myself. It's focused on him. And here's something else I see from this list up here. I definitely see some repetition. I see this repetition of this word I. I celebrate myself and sing myself. I assume. And if you see it down here, this repetition goes on and on and on. It's all about him, a focus on himself. Truth comes from himself. Again, it kind of goes into transcendentalism, but the idea is the repetition creates that. So I'm going to write that down. We've got some repetition happening here. I also noticed right here, I kind of expected, maybe you expected this, that these lines would rhyme. But he's going to break every rule. Again, remember, transcendentalists are about breaking rules. And so he wants to break from that. So I'm going to go ahead and write this down here. There is no rhyme. And there doesn't really seem to be a real clear rhythm here. This is what we call free verse. He's speaking freely. And that kind of goes with his thoughts, right? I'll speak what I feel. I'm not going to follow the rules. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm going to say this the way I want to say it. You know, something else that certainly sticks out about this with that nature is also this idea of imagery. He really wants to create that imagery for us. So he's going to start off with the spear of summer grass. We'll write this down. I found some imagery here. This is some imagery too, the soil, the air. And there's perhaps some other things here we could say that are connected to imagery, but I definitely see this array, this focus on nature. The last thing I want to talk about is about what is the theme here? What's the message that I think he's communicating? Well, there's a couple messages I think that we have here from this poem, and the first one is this right here. This idea that, you know, deep down we're all the same, and you can see this right here at the very beginning. He's talking about you and I, and by the end of this poem, we're going to feel the same about this. You are like me, and the atoms connected to nature. You also see this in the second or the third stanza, this idea that my parents are the same, I'm from the same place, we're all connected to nature, and deep down we are one and the same. I think another theme, though, that we see for sure is where he says, I'm going to break the schools, I'm going to break the creeds and all the rules that we've had, and I'm going to break from the rhythm here and the rhyme and all this stuff. We definitely see that breaking tradition and rules to find oneself is important. And so we certainly find this as well in this selection. Okay, English students, I hope this is helpful. Go ahead and copy this down. This is what I want us to be able to do without the stickies. You're going to have to write on these things. And as we talk about them in class, on the back side of your paper, there is going to be another one of these, except for we're going to do this a little differently. For this one, what I want you to do is find a song that represents you or that you greatly enjoy. I want you to write down 12 lines of it, and I want you to do what we just did. Just answer these questions. Why did you pick this song? Why is it meaningful? What's the theme here? What's the message of this song? And I want you to start to practice finding some of these things. You might not find ideas of romanticism or transcendentalism, although that would be kind of cool if you did. But go ahead and look for some of these other things that your song has. And how is this a reflection of you? How do you feel like this song represents you? Why do you like this song? All right, thanks a lot, you guys. We'll talk about it in class.